The first thing that struck me about the Airbnb wasn't the size, the decor, or even the location. It was the silence. I had booked the little house online a week earlier. 2 nights in a small Iowa town while I visited a client for work. From the photos, the place looked perfect. Clean, calm, neutral tones, and far cheaper than the sterile hotels nearby. The reviews were mostly positive, too, though short and vague. Nice stay, quiet place, no issues. That last one, no issues, felt strangely defensive, like someone was trying a little too hard to convince future guests. Still, I brushed it off. The Uber dropped me off at dusk. The town was quiet, its main street already closing down, neon signs flickering half-heartedly. The house itself sat just off a side road, tucked between 2 tall oaks whose bare branches scraped faintly against the roof. I unlocked the door with the code the host had sent me. It clicked open, revealing a hallway lined with framed paintings, generic landscapes, sunsets, and lakes. The air inside was cool, a little stale, like no one had lived here in months. I wheeled my suitcase into the living room. That's when the silence hit me again. No hum of a refrigerator, no ticking clock, not even the faint whoosh of air conditioning, just nothing. I told myself it was fine. I was tired from traveling, my ears ringing from the plane. Silence was good, peaceful, exactly what I needed. I dropped onto the couch. It sagged more than I expected. The blinds were drawn tightly across the wide front window, sealed with a neat little cord tucked around a hook. Odd. Usually, Airbnbs left windows at least slightly open for natural light. Here, everything was shut out. I got up to check. When I pulled one blind down, it hardly budged, like it had been jammed in place. A faint chill seemed to seep in through the gaps, making me shiver. The rest of the house was fine. Bedroom neat. Bathrobe clean. The kitchen was spotless, almost too spotless, like nobody had ever actually used it. By the time I unpacked, night had fully settled. The trees outside bent in the wind, their shadows twitching across the blinds. And that was when I noticed it, a faint shape, not in the blinds themselves, but behind them, as if something or someone stood just outside the window, perfectly still. I froze. My chest tightened. It wasn't a person. Couldn't be. The figure was tall, too tall, its shoulders narrow but elongated. Its outline was sharp except for one detail. The head was missing. No roundness where a head should be. Just nothing. I blinked, and it was gone. A trick of the light, I told myself. Shadows from the trees, maybe the blinds shifting. I laughed out loud, though my voice cracked in the empty room. Get a grip. But the silence that followed seemed heavier now, as if the house was holding its breath. And in that silence, for the first time, I thought I heard it. Faint, distant, like a television left on in another room. Static, just a whisper of it. I turned my head listening, but the sound was gone. I woke up the next morning trying to laugh off what I'd seen, a shadow behind a blind. Probably the tree branches outside or a passing car's headlights. Still, the silence weighed on me. I padded barefoot into the kitchen. No sound of pipes, no hum of appliances, nothing. When I flipped the light switch, the bulb flickered reluctantly, buzzing faintly before settling. I made coffee with the machine provided, grateful at least something worked. Sitting at the small dining table, I checked my phone, full signal, Wi-Fi connected, but the moment I tried to scroll Instagram, the app froze. Twitter wouldn't refresh either, only emails loaded. Plain text, like the rest of the internet, didn't exist here. My host had left a binder on the counter titled, "Welcome to your stay." Inside were laminated sheets with emergency numbers, local restaurants, and checkout instructions. Oddly, every page had been reprinted in the exact same font. in perfect alignment, like someone had gone out of their way to scrub out any trace of personality, even odder. The floor plan. Halfway through the binder, I found a neatly drawn sketch of the house. It showed the living room, kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom, normal enough, but then there was an extra hallway drawn in, long, straight, leading to a square-shaped room at the far end. I frowned. There was no such hallway. Curious, I walked the house again. Living room, bedroom, bath, kitchen, no hallway, just blank walls. But when I stood in the living room and looked carefully, I realized something. The wall opposite the couch was slightly wrong. The dimensions didn't add up, like the wall had been pushed inward, covering something, maybe a closet? Except closets didn't line up perfectly with drawn hallways on laminated floor plans. I pressed my ear against the wall. Silence. And then, faintly, underneath everything, static, just like last night. My chest tightened. I knock. Ked, softly. The sound that came back wasn't hollow. It was deeper, like I'd tapped something with space behind it. That's when I noticed the framed painting hanging there. A lake scene, soft blues and pinks, completely unremarkable, too unremarkable. It hung slightly crooked. My hand hesitated before touching it. The moment I did, I swore I heard movement behind the wall. Not loud, not distinct, just a shift. And then, footsteps, slow, deliberate. Coming closer, I ripped my hand away. The silence returned. I forced myself to breathe, told myself I was imagining things. Houses creaked, old plumbing groaned, sound carried strangely in these little towns, but deep down I knew it wasn't the house. I returned to the couch, clutching my coffee like a weapon. Through the blinds, daylight streamed faintly. The trees outside swayed in the wind, and then, just for a moment, I saw it again. The figure, standing behind the blinds, headless still, like it had been waiting for me to notice. I froze. My throat locked up. The blinds trembled ever so slightly. Then the static rose again. Low at first, then louder, like an old TV crackling just out of tune. I dropped my cup, coffee spilled across the carpet, and then, just as quickly as it had started, it stopped. Silence. The blinds hung still, nothing was there, but in the welcome binder where the hallway sketch had been, the page was gone. That night I told myself I wouldn't look at the blinds. I wouldn't listen for static. I would just sleep, get through my booking, and leave early if I had to. I locked the bedroom door, shut the curtains, and left a lamp on. For a while it worked. I drifted off, though my dreams were restless, fragmented images of static, shadows, and the crooked lake painting. Then, at 2:14 a.m., I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. The lamp still glowed faintly. The house was silent. But then I noticed something. The air felt heavy, charged, like the moments before a storm, and underneath it, so faint it could have been imagined, was the static, not loud, not blasting, just there, like the hiss of a distant television no one had turned on. I tried to ignore it, rolled over, pulled the covers tighter, then footsteps, not outside, inside, slow, deliberate. In the living room, I held my breath. The steps creaked across the floorboards closer to my bedroom door. Stop silence. And then, a knock. 3 soft, deliberate raps against my door. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My body locked in place, paralyzed between fight and flight. The knocks came again, louder, 3 more. I wanted to call out, to shout something, anything, but my voice caught in my throat. Then the doorknob turned. I watched in horror as it twisted, rattling against the lock. Someone or something was trying to get in. The static swelled, louder now, filling the room like invisible pressure. I scrambled out of bed and pressed my back against the far wall, staring at the door. The knob twisted violently. The door shook. Then, silence. The knob stopped moving. The static cut out. For a moment, the silence was worse than the noise. Then, slowly, the sound of footsteps retreating. Away from my door, back down the hall, I stayed frozen, listening. The steps faded and then stopped completely. But the house didn't feel empty again. It felt walk. And I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes? Hours? Time didn't seem to move. Finally, when exhaustion dragged me back toward unconsciousness, I dared to glance at the window. The blinds were trembling, and just for a second, only a second, I saw it again. The headless shadow standing outside the window, facing me, perfectly still, waiting. I barely slept after that night. Every creak in the house, every whisper of wind outside felt like a presence pressing in. By morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Stress, exhaustion, and overactive imagination fueled by late-night Reddit threads. But deep down, I knew better. The static, the knocks, the shadow, it wasn't in my head. It was in this house. I packed my bag, ready to check out early, but as I reached the front door, my phone buzzed. No service. Strange, I had full bars yesterday. I stepped outside, holding my phone up, still nothing. When I turned back toward the house, I froze. The blinds in the living room window were open. I hadn't touched them, and through that gap, I could see the painting. The crooked one above the fireplace. It was different. The lake was darker now, black, almost oily, and where the reflection of the trees had once been, there was a figure, tall, thin, headless, watching me. I couldn't leave, not yet, not until I knew what this place was hiding, so I went back inside. The painting was worse up close. The water shimmered unnaturally, like it was wet paint that never dried. The figure in the reflection seemed to shift depending on the angle I looked at it from. I reached up and touched the frame. It wobbled. Then I noticed something. Behind the canvas, against the wall, was a draft. Cold air seeped through the gap. Hands shaking, I lifted the painting down. Behind it was a door, small, narrow, old, with chipped wood and rusted hinges. The knob was blackened, as if burned. I hesitated, every instinct screaming to stop, to put the painting back, to walk away, to never think about this again. But something deeper pulled me forward. I turned the knob. It opened with a groan. Inside was a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The smell hit me immediately. Damp, metallic, like rust and mold, and something faintly sweet, almost like spoiled fruit. I grabbed the lamp from the bedroom and stepped inside. The walls were lined with old wood paneling, clawed and scratched. The air grew colder the deeper I went. At the bottom, the hallway opened into a small hidden room, and in that room were drawings, hundreds of them, pinned to the walls, scattered on the floor, nailed into the wood, all hand-drawn on yellowed paper. Every one of them showed the same thing, a headless figure. Sometimes it stood in a field, sometimes in a forest, sometimes by a house that looked exactly like this one. And in every single drawing, the figure was closer, step by step, page by page, until on the last sheet I picked up, it was pressed right against a window, the same living room window I'd seen it at last night. The static returned, faint at first, then louder. The lamp flickered, and when I turned toward the corner of the room, it was there, not in a drawing, not in the reflection, but standing in the room. Tall, dark, headless, closer than ever before. I couldn't breathe. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, filling the corner of the hidden room, impossibly tall. Its body rippled with static, like a broken TV signal given human shape. But where its head should have been, there was nothing, just black air. The static grew louder, vibrating in my teeth, in my skull. My lamp flickered until the bulb hissed and died, plunging me into near darkness. Only the faint glow of the sketches on the wall remained, their yellowed pages shuddering as if breathing. I stumbled backward, clutching the doorway. My voice cracked. What do you want?" The static answered, not with words, but with a crushing wave of sound that rattled the room, shaking the nails from the wood. The shadow took one step forward. The ground beneath me trembled. The air was too heavy to breathe. I bolted up the narrow stairs, slamming the hidden door shut behind me. The painting clattered to the floor. My chest heaved as I pressed against the wall, trying to calm down. Silence. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it hadn't moved at all. But then, thump. From behind the wall, another thump, louder. Something was climbing the stairs. The knob of the hidden door rattled, slowly, deliberately. I shoved the painting back over it and sprinted into the living room. My phone finally lit up. Service bars back again. My hands shook as I dialed 911. It rang. A voice answered, but it wasn't a dispatcher. It was static, hissing, warping, broken laughter buried inside it. I dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. It was coming from inside the walls now. Every outlet, every vent, every corner of the house hummed with that noise, growing louder, burrowing into my ears. Then, my TV turned on by itself. The screen glowed with static, and there it was, the headless shadow, not in the corner, not in the basement, but inside the screen. It tilted as though watching me, the flickering lines of interference making its body stutter. I backed toward the front door, fumbling with the lock. The knob turned, but the door wouldn't open. It was like the wood itself was breathing, swelling shut. Behind me, the static on the TV shifted. The figure leaned closer, closer, until the screen bulged, as though it was trying to climb through. The glass cracked. The air turned electric. The smell of ozone burning my nose. I grabbed the lamp and smashed the TV. Sparks flew, the screen shattering to black. Silence fell. And then, tap. On the window, I turned. The shadow was standing outside, pressed against the glass. No head, no face, just watching. I froze at the window. The shadow didn't move. It just stood there, impossibly still, rain dripping down the glass between us. Its shoulders rose and fell like it was breathing, but there was still nothing where its head should be. Only empty, static air. My hand shook as I fumbled with my phone again. Dead. The screen was black, and no matter how many times I pressed the power button, it wouldn't light up. Tap. The figure's hand lifted, pressing against the glass. Long, jagged fingers spread wide, too long to be human. The window pane quivered under the touch. Then, another hand joined it, and the glass began to sink inward, like the window wasn't glass anymore, like it had turned to liquid, warping around the figure's hands. I stumbled back, clutching the broken lamp. The air thickened with that humming static again, vibrating so hard it felt like my teeth would crack. "Leave me alone!" I screamed. The shadow didn't answer. Instead, the walls around me groaned. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but then I saw it. Dark stains spreading through the wallpaper, thick, wet blood. It seeped from the corners, from the outlets, dripping down in thick, slow rivulets. The whole house seemed to pulse, like it was alive and bleeding. The shadow's hands pushed harder into the window. The pane caved, stretched like plastic wrap, and I realized it was about to break through. I turned and ran, heart pounding up the stairs 2 at a time. My breath was sharp, metallic, like I was already choking on blood. Behind me, the glass finally gave way with a sound like ripping flesh. It was inside. I slammed my bedroom door shut and shoved my dresser against it, my body shaking. The static roared, louder than thunder, rattling the pictures off my walls. Then, silence. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. For one fragile moment, I thought maybe it was gone, until I looked at the mirror and saw it standing in the reflection. Right behind me, my throat locked as I spun around, but the room was empty. The mirror, though, still showed it, headless, towering, reaching for me with those two long fingers, cracks spread across the glass as its hands pressed forward. The mirror bulged outward, just like the TV had. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could, a thick book, and hurled it. The mirror shattered. Shards exploded across the floor, and in the broken pieces scattered across the wood, the reflection of the shadow didn't vanish. It multiplied. Now there were dozens of them. Each shard showed the headless figure, standing closer than the last, some at the window, some at the door. One crouched right next to me. The static surged again. My ears bled, my vision shook. I covered my face and screamed. When I opened my eyes, the shards were empty, the reflections were gone. But the dresser I'd pushed in front of it was sliding. Something on the other side was pushing it away. The dresser slid another inch. My blood froze. I threw my weight against it, pressing my shoulder hard. But the thing on the other side was stronger. The wood scraped across the floor, inch by inch. No matter how hard I pushed, the static was everywhere now, pouring from the walls, rattling in my chest, shaking my vision like I was trapped inside a broken TV screen. Bang! The door jolted inward. A thunderous slam rattled the dresser, shoving me back. My body hit the floor hard. Bang, bang, bang. Each strike was louder, heavier, until cracks spread through the wooden frame. Dust rained from the ceiling. I scrambled up, gripping the broken lamp in my hands like a weapon. My legs trembled, my breath shallow. Then silence. For a moment, I thought maybe it had stopped. The silence stretched so long it felt unbearable. I pressed my ear to the door, barely breathing. Nothing. Then slow, deliberate, scratch, scratch, scratch. Long nails dragged down the wood. The sound vibrated through my skull. The static seemed to laugh. And then, with a final shuddering crack, the door exploded inward, the dresser toppled, wood splintering, and I was thrown back again. It stood there in the doorway, tall, headless, its shoulders heaving, fingers twitching at its sides like it couldn't wait to grab me. The room seemed to collapse around it, the walls bending inward like the whole house was being sucked into its presence. My throat burned. I couldn't scream. It stepped inside. Each footfall shook the floor. The static roared, louder than thunder, pressing against my skull like knives. I lifted the broken lamp, but my hands shook too hard. My knees gave out. It reached for me, fingers so long they almost touched me without moving. I swung wildly, smashing the lamp into its arm. Crack! The bulb burst in a spray of sparks. The shadow staggered back. Just for a second, its form flickered like it wasn't fully soulless. But then it straightened again, taller now, darker, filling the room completely. I scrambled backward until my spine hit the wall. Its hand pressed flat against my chest, and I felt it, not cold, not hot, but static, like 100 needles driving into my skin, through my ribs, into my heart. My body seized, my vision filled with static snow, and for the first time, it bent low, like it was bringing its missing head to my level, and whispered without a mouth. "You can't leave." The static burned inside me, crawling through my veins like fire ants. My chest ached where it touched me, but the shadow pulled back, almost taunting, letting me breathe just enough to realize I wasn't free. I staggered up, my body trembling, eyes locked on the broken door frame. "Run!" Every nerve screamed it. I bolted. My feet pounded across the ruined floor, through the door, down the narrow hallway. But the house, it wasn't the same. The walls leaned inward, stretching longer than they should, twisting into impossible angles. Doors I'd never seen before lined the hallway, each one vibrating with the same low hum of static. "Don't stop, don't stop." I sprinted, shouldering past a door that opened on its own, inside. I caught a glimpse, a mirror, but not of me. The reflection was the shadow, headless, standing perfectly still. Its hands dripped black static like liquid. I slammed the door shut, heart hammering. The hallway flickered. Suddenly, the front door was there. Just 10 feet away, I sprinted harder, every muscle screaming, and lunged for the knob. Click! Locked. I twisted, pulled, kicked, slammed my shoulder into it, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, the static grew louder. I didn't have to look. I could feel it coming. I spun around anyway. The shadow filled the hallway, its form stretching wider than the walls themselves, arms dragging along the wallpaper, nails carving deep gouges as it walked. I turned back, screaming, and smashed the glass pane of the door with my elbow. Pain seared down my arm, blood spilling fast, but I didn't care. I shoved my hand through, fumbling for the lock. Then, fingers wrapped around my wrist, not from behind me, from inside the broken glass. My reflection's hand gripped mine, pale, bloodless, cold as ice. I screamed, yanking back, but the reflection wouldn't let go. It pulled harder, dragging my arm deeper into the shattered frame, like the door itself was swallowing me. The static roared in my ears, drowning out everything else, and then I heard it again. The whisper, "You can't leave." My arm burned as the reflection's grip yanked me deeper through the shattered glass. I screamed, twisting, kicking against the door, but the more I fought, the further I slipped inside. The glass no longer cut. It bent like water swallowing me whole. Then, with a final pull, I tumbled through, and everything changed. The world on the other side was wrong. I lay on a floor that looked like the house's hallway, but it was drowned in endless black water. Ripples spread beneath me, though I wasn't sinking. The walls stretched high, impossibly tall, with no ceiling in sight, and the static, oh God, the static was alive here. It rolled across the walls in jagged waves, crawling like veins of lightning, illuminating everything in flashes of white. The air smelled like burning wires and wet earth. I stood, trembling, looking around. The hallway doors were still here, lining the walls, but their handles twisted and moved as if alive, breathing, waiting. Behind each one, I could hear faint murmurs, whispers that rose and fell like chanting. My chest tightened. "Where am I?" I whispered. The water beneath me rippled. From the black surface, something rose. Not the shadow, at least. Not yet. It was me, another version of me. Pale, bloodless, with eyes drowned in static fuzz, face twitching like a glitching video frame. It tilted its head, watching me. Then it smiled, and when it opened its mouth, the shadow's whisper poured out. "You're where you belong." I stumbled back, slipping on the wet floor. My reflection followed, walking on the water without a sound. Suddenly, thud. A door burst open to my left. Hands, dozens of them, shot out from the darkness inside, grasping, clawing, trying to drag me in. Their skin was gray and stretched, fingernails long and jagged. I kicked free, screaming, slamming the door shut. The whispers behind it grew louder, furious, like a swarm of voices pressed again. In the wood, I ran. The hallway stretched endlessly, water splashing under my steps, doors slamming open and shut at random as if mocking me. Some showed flashes of the real world. My bedroom, the street outside, the broken front door. But every glimpse was wrong. Empty, silent, like I had never been there at all. And then, ahead I saw it. The shadow. It stood in the distance. Body taller now, headless as always, but clearer, more solid. The static swirled violently around it, bending the hallway itself. Its arms rose slowly, like a conductor commanding an orchestra, and every door along the hallway burst open at once. Screams, hands, faces pressing out. Some were mine, some were strangers, all of them twisted, pleading, reaching for me. The reflection beside me whispered again, smiling with broken teeth, "You're already part of him." I clutched my head, falling to my knees, static exploding in my skull like needles, and when I looked up, the shadow was closer, so close I could see where its head should be, a void, a pulsing, endless blackness that sucked in the light around it. It raised its hand, the world flickered, and I realized I wasn't in the mirror was in me. The static swallowed every sound, every thought. The shadow stood before me now, taller than the hallway, body warping the walls, stretching reality itself. Its void where the head should be pulled at me, dragging me closer without touch. The water rippled beneath my feet, pulling me forward. "No," I whispered. Though my voice cracked, weak, lost in the static, the reflection walked beside me, still smiling, its form flickering like an old VHS tape. "You've seen it already," it said, voice jagged. "You know the truth. There was never a shadow behind the door. It was you." My knees buckled. I tried to speak, but the static burned down my throat. The reflection's head twitched violently, bones cracking as it turned its face toward me, its jaw unhinged, stretching impossibly wide, until it split into the same black void as the shadow's missing head. And then it spoke in 1,000 voices at once. "You were chosen." The shadow raised its hand. Every door around me blew open. Hands, faces, screams. The hallway filled with bodies. Myself, duplicated 100 times, each broken in different ways. Some eyeless, some headless, some rotting, all reaching, clawing. They weren't trying to hurt me, they were begging, "End it, please. End it." Tears stung my eyes, and what? The void pulsed, and then I saw a flash, like lightning in my skull. The memory wasn't mine, but I felt it. The shadow was never just an intruder. It was the echo of everyone who had ever opened the wrong door, everyone who had ever been pulled into this place and left incomplete. A collection of souls without heads, identities erased, left screaming in silence. And now, it wanted me to join them. I ran. My feet splashed wildly through the black water, but the hallway stretched longer and longer, bending away from me. The shadow's form flickered ahead of me no matter how far I ran. Closer every time I blinked, the reflection was suddenly in front of me, blocking my path, grinning with static eyes. "There's no escape," it whispered. I swung at it, fist connecting with cold flesh. But instead of shattering, it absorbed me. My arms sank into its body like liquid glass. The reflection grabbed my wrist and pulled. I screamed. The void inside its head widened, swallowing the light around it. And then, behind me, the shadow moved, not walking, not gliding. It simply was, suddenly towering above me, the void of its head swallowing everything. I felt myself being pulled in. For one final moment, I resisted. I dug my nails into the wet floor, screaming, body shaking, refusing to give in, but the static grew louder. The hands from the doors grabbed me, not pulling me away, but pushing me forward, toward the void, as if they wanted me to join them. "No, please," I begged, tears streaming, voice lost in the endless static. And then, silence. The world bent. The static cut out. I opened my eyes and I was back. The hallway, my hallway, the broken door at the end, the faint morning light seeping through the cracks. It was over. I stood gasping, hands trembling, body soaked with sweat. The shadow was gone. The static was gone. Just silence. Relief poured through me like warm water. I turned toward the door, ready to run, ready to leave this nightmare behind. But before I touched the handle, I noticed something in the mirror on the wall. It was me, only this time, my reflection wasn't moving. It just smiled, and where its head should have been was a void.